Welcome, dear one, Kerry, and we'll say welcome, dear ones, who will be watching in the eternal moment of now. We are the keepers of the keys.
So excited to have you back, and I'm really looking forward to us doing this on the 22nd of every month this year. I just think that's going to be a lot of fun for us to work through the year.
We agree, and we are pleased that when we kicked you off, so to speak, on the 22nd of January, on that date, and then you continued on the 22nd of February, that you have taken up the mantle and continuing on the 22nd of March.
Yeah, well,
yes,
I love the palindromes thing. So yeah, I thought, well, that gives us a good bit of structure to make sure we do continue these conversations.
It does. So the 22nd of every month of this year, we look forward to these conversations.
Oh, fantastic. So I just want to kick off with, I had written my questions down, and as I was sitting here, I was just preparing myself for this chat, this play date. I thought I'm going to look up in the Blue Volcanoes message of the day that you do with Vicky on her on Facebook, and I think you do Instagram, but I'm a Facebook person, but anyway. So I looked it up, and funny enough, today's message was all about teaching and about our purpose for being here on this planet, whether that's to be a teacher or to teach what we learn, that sort of thing. And it just directly linked back to the first question that I wanted to ask, funny enough.
Funnily enough.
So just for a bit of clarity, I'm going to base it around my moment and my challenge that I'm experiencing at the moment. And for us, I think that are doing this light work, that as we look more into ourselves, we expose more of our connections to all our relationships in our life. And for me particularly, I've just walked away from one that was no longer serving me, and it's a major relationship in my life. And I since in investigation have found out that this person has murdered me in other lifetimes, and those sorts of challenging things that I've always had an inclination that there was something not right with this relationship. So in thinking about what you wrote today in today's message and that sort of storyline, why is it that we do choose people like that have persecuted us in other lifetimes? What is the kind of purpose that we would be aiming for to make a deal with someone like that we possibly already fear or have connections of negative issues with? So why do we choose those types of lifetimes and those people to make relationships with?
We love this question. We adore this question, for it is relevant to so many, particularly at this time upon the earth. And yes, there is a reason why it's coming up today. Now, let us lay the basis for this, because we're going to talk about balance, and it may seem at first irrelevant, but we'll explain the relevance. So here you are coming through the equinox, and this is the last day of the energies of the equinox. And the equinox is all about balance and harmony. Now, it is a universal law that everything must return ultimately to balance. Now, this is what karma is. It is not a punishment, dear ones. It is about a universal law of bringing all back to balance. Where you have had one person persecute you over lifetimes, you must have a balance in the relationship with this person so that you can come and release the karma. Now, we'll go back to that. But what we will say, that given this transition into the consciousness of love that is unfolding at this time upon the planet, more and more of you have agreed to come through in this particular lifetime to experience this transition by supporting the agenda, the soul agenda to release karma. First to balance and then to release. So to balance and release karma, what you must do is engage with that person. Now, for some, it is not necessary to engage with them in an intimate relationship, as you have experienced in one. And we can say there's a great mirroring with Vicky, because not her current relationship, her one before, was the greatest karmic relationship of her life. And that person had also killed her a number of times.
Yeah.
And it was a very difficult relationship, and one that caused trauma and angst and many challenges. And we know that you have experienced these challenges also. Now, while the situations are different, the stories are similar. So we bring this up to explain that, because Vicky has had many conversations with us, with all of her divine collective, as to why. It is that why couldn't it not have been avoided? Why did she have to go through the experience? Exactly as you're asking, is why we adore this question. For many people will also ask why. Now, it was necessary for her to release the karma. And so we're going to say this applies to you all. If you find yourselves engaged in a relationship with someone who is causing that much difficulty for you, particularly where there are previous soul relationships with them, then it is necessary to balance karma with them and then ultimately to clear it. So you have, even in loving relationships, an energy of balance that is required. You have, for example, you have your daughters. You know that it takes a lot of energy to raise children, and that's a lot of expenditure of energy. Now, for there to be balance across the souls, there will be a flipping around of that experience. And so often you play the different relationships. So where you become the child and they the parent. And that may be one form of bringing balance to a relationship. It is still a balance in love, because of course a mother-child relationship or parent-child relationship is all about love, yet they're still requiring of the balance of the energy. So it is just changing the relationship order around so that they can come into balance. Now, that is on the love spectrum. When we come to the not love spectrum, that can have much, as we said, angst, challenge, and even trauma. Now, you will be moving forward into a time where there is less and less trauma. This is why you have chosen at this time to move through your greatest karmic relationships before you move into the consciousness of love. We can use Vicky as the example. She now no longer has to engage with this soul again. And if she did not experience that relationship, then she would have had to experience in subsequent lifetimes.
Yeah.
And so she has done away with the necessity of having subsequent lifetimes with him by going through this now. And so those of you who have difficult soul agendas, let us rephrase that. Soul agendas that have brought through difficult experiences, it is because you have wanted to move forward into the consciousness of love by dropping most of your karma, if not all, and moving through some of the greatest soul lessons that you've been working on, some of you for lifetimes.
Yeah.
And in some ways you may have stacked the deck so that you must get this soul lesson for remembrance. Otherwise, nothing else will work out for you. And these are the most challenging human experiences, But when you get to the other side of these lessons or these remembrances, these are the greatest celebrations and successes from the soul's perspective. So in your case, dear one, are there potentials for you having not chosen that relationship? No. It is difficult to deny these callings of the soul, for you will, and we say you as in the collective you, experience these relationships with a degree of chemistry and soul recognition, because you have known each other before. And this is where people confuse the recognition of knowing each other before with what you may call soulmate.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And it is very common for some to confuse a twin flame relationship or a soulmate relationship with a karmic one. Now, these may be ones where there is a lot of chemistry and energy flowing between. And so that drawing, that magnetism that draws you together is compelling for a reason. Until you've learned that lesson. And then the charge dissipates. And then you may turn to that other person and say, how did I even consider this person as a potential partner or a relationship or a partnership in any way, shape, or form? It is like the spell is broken. And indeed it has.
Yeah, yeah. Wonderful. So kind of as an extension for that is you're talking about our purpose. One of our purposes for possibly going through that is to learn a soul lesson.
Yes.
So I think one of our biggest soul lessons at the moment that I'm seeing when talking to others is about our own self-worth.
Yes.
And I also feel that's because of many lifetimes when we have been the ones burnt at the stake and all those things for our beliefs and our ways. So what's a way that, like, once we start establishing that we are so worthy, there's a catchphrase getting around called Impostor Syndrome.
Yes.
So I think that kind of relates to this because we have that fear of persecution in the back of our minds that we don't feel we're good enough, so therefore we can't go out in the world and use our special gifts. I think through my relationship recently with all the trauma that's come from that it's empowered me to be able to go out and do this kind of work, and here we are. How can we talk to others out there that are still experiencing that, what they are calling imposter syndrome? What can they do to empower themselves to move forward?
We adore this question also, for there is a trinity of self-worth or self-love, empowerment, and moving through to a recognition of who you really are. Now, let us speak to the self-worth, self-love issue, and we'll wrap it around. Now, if you're moving into the consciousness of love, dear ones, it does not only mean love for other people, it means love for yourselves. And so when you have love for yourselves, you know yourselves as worthy. You know yourselves as love, for you are love. And so when you know yourselves as love, there can be no denying that worthiness. It is not even a question. And so when you come into that, there is a power to that. For love is power and is indeed the most powerful force in the universe. Now, while we will explain why there are many definitions of power, some will see power as power over others. That is not the power of which we speak. That power over others is a human control agenda. A power within is connecting to the love that you are. When you are connected to who you really are and the love that you are, There is nothing that can deny that power. And you certainly could not. So where you may have imposter syndrome, there can be a number of reasons. The imposter syndrome, let us say it is more common in women, or those who identify as women, than those who are men or identify as men.
Yep.
Now, the reason being is partly due to the social conditioning. The other reason is due to, as you named and identified, the circumstances of having past lives where you have been persecuted for what you have done. Now, you can understand when your life has been taken or you have been tortured in any way for fundamentally who you are. That is the most disempowering experience you could have. And so if you are then now coming into your voice and into your power, and yet feeling a fear and anxiety around that, then there's going to be some questioning, who am I to be doing this?
Yep, 100%.
Now, there is differences in the way boys and girls are socialized. Girls are socialized to be more risk averse than boys. And boys are rewarded for their courage and to try new things.
Yeah.
And so here you have a multi-layer understanding of both social conditioning, past life experiences, as well as the disconnection from love as to why someone may have an imposter syndrome. Now, if it is purely about social conditioning, then you may say, when you're experiencing what you're calling imposter syndrome, that I only need to have more experience in doing this before it does not feel like I am an imposter. What we'll also say is that as you repeat this experience and affirm, know, and feel that you have a right to be there and to fulfill that role, then the energy of that imposter syndrome will dissipate. What we would say to people who are feeling it is do it anyway.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. Yeah.
Do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because we will say that those who are even successful, highly successful, may still have that imposter syndrome. So in some ways, you may feel either unworthy to be receiving accolades that they may be receiving, or seeing that their gifts are just as good as other people's gifts who are not recognized. And that may be true, dear ones. It does not mean that you are not worthy of the accolades and the recognition. It just means that the others are also worthy. And so let that experience teach you humility, to be humble, to know that there are others like you that also deserve it. It is not to say that you do not deserve it, it's just that others also do. And yet there may be other reasons why the others have not called in that deservingness, that recognition, and that applause in their human physical experience.
Yeah, and I like how you brought up, like, there could be multiple reasons why we're feeling that way, and like there's not just one answer fits all.
No.
And that I think that's when we do that work and go within and look at ourselves and see and ask ourselves, why do I feel this way, and ask and see what comes back, and to see how many dimensions are at play here.
Many. And we can say that there can be in any group and in any human group that has been socialized or conditioned to experience themselves, or has been those direct experiences where they are taught or told or in the actions demonstrated that they are less than in some way, then that may engender that feeling of imposter syndrome. So let us call it an act of resistance to that conditioning, and we mean resistance in a positive way in this sense. You're resisting the social conditioning that has taught you to be less than by moving into an understanding that you have just as much right as anybody else to be standing in that room, to be taking space, to set forth into the arena and command attention.
Yeah, and like on multiple dimensions. And then as you're speaking, I'm thinking then there's the DNA side of it, like it's come down possibly through our family bloodlines as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. There may be a family story that has been carried on, and you have agreed to take on that story so that you can heal and release that story. So yes, many layers to that, dear one.
Yeah, and then I'm also thinking the reverse too, like for me that I class myself as a shaman, and straight away people go to more the indigenous shamanic understandings that we have for the beautiful people that have come before us on this planet. But for me, I'm tapping into tapping into more my Celtic shamanistic family bloodlines.
Yes.
So we tend to forget those as well. And then I'm thinking, oh, okay, so now I know there's something else for me to investigate there in the Celtic realms as well.
I will also say your past life experiences as a shaman also. So it is your soul lineage, your soul history as a shaman man or medicine woman that you are bringing through also. So it is both through your DNA on a physical level, genetic level, but multidimensional level through your soul history and soul lineage also.
So many layers. Okay. Where was I going to go next? Here we go. So another thing I've been noticing that in my investigations, when we start using our gifts on a more consistent level, for some of us that I talk to or I see on the YouTube and that sort of thing, that they sometimes get some sort of detrimental effect by using their skills. Like whether that be doing a couple of readings through the day, then they're exhausted or they've got a sore back from removing stuff from people. I've been seeing a fellow that does like psychic readings with the stars, and he was saying like he has had a collapsed lung and he's had this and he's had that, and he does tend to walk away with a shadow of the energy that he stepped into with those people. So I also noticed with the Essenes, I've been reading up on the Essenes, and the same sort of thing they were talking about when they do a lot of support work on an energy level, that it can knock them around as well. Is there practices that we can do that can support us more on that energetic basis so that we are not so fatigued about doing what we love to do and helping others?
We will say there are a number of reasons, and for each person it may differ. So think of it as a palette or a spectrum of experiences that can create the experience of being fatigued or affected and negatively affected in some way. Now, if you can understand, here you are in your human bodies, it is the physical dimension is the most dense. And we say the most dense because it is the slowest vibration. So if we just think of energy as the speed of vibration, we're not saying it as it's low, we're just talking about speed. So it's slow. So it's slow enough for you to see, to touch, to feel on a physical level. Now, when you are connecting to higher energies, for example, now that is a very fastest, it's a faster speed.
Yep.
Now, if your body over time has accumulated experiences such as trauma, any adverse experiences, anything that dis-ease in your body, anything that has caused blockages or a lack of flow, a lack of health, a lack of well-being in your body in any way, shape or form, then that is a slowing of energy even further, or even a stilling of energy, a stagnation of energy in parts of your body. Now, here you are on a human level trying to access higher information, higher frequencies, in other words, faster.
Yeah.
Your body cannot calibrate to that energy. Yeah. And so this has been Vicky's direct experience when she started doing energy work. Because of her digestive issues and the blocks there through her trauma and her adverse experiences, she put on weight and her digestive issues got worse. Now, this has been an accumulation over time where her body could not contain the faster energies that she was bringing through. Now, this is what is occurring, and we are assisting in this, in there being a reversal, so that starting to open her body, heal that which requires healing, release that which requires releasing, and opening it up and allowing enough flow so that there is no longer that pooling of energy that cannot flow through the body. For the body on a physical level must discharge, release that which has been released energetically. Now, everyone works differently. Some are better at not working through their bodies. Some are not as sensitive to energies. Mm-hmm. Some are more disconnected to their bodies and they go out of their bodies to do the work. But then coming back into their bodies will find the difficulty in grounding. And so will experience perhaps chaos in their lives that ensues when they're doing that kind of work. So for everybody, it is different in how they process the energy through them. The other element is the absorbing of other people's energy. Now, when you absorb other people's energy and cannot adequately clear it, then there will be adverse experiences that you have from doing that for others. So there must be adequate processes and energy practices that will support you to release other people's energies. Now, when you have blockages in your physical bodies, that makes it more difficult. And so we would be more not only in tune with your bodies, respectful of your bodies, and instead of seeing them as in the way to doing this work, ask your bodies, how more can you support your bodies so that there is not such a gap between the faster frequencies and the slower ones. Now, of course, because that which is faster and that which is slower, there's not going to be, let us say, a consistent marriage of energies if you're connecting to the higher realms in always being embodying that into the physical until you can. And that is when you get to mastery. That is something what Yeshua did, what Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, and all the masters did. Now, to get to that point, how do you honor the body? Do you rest it? Do you clear it? Do you ground it? Do you heal it? Do you love it? Or do you ignore it?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's almost like we kind of need to book ourselves into our lives.
Yeah.
We schedule everything else in our lives.
It is a good thing that you say this. Vicky did just that yesterday. She has had a grid set up for herself. It's just behind her, for weeks, so that she can do a session for herself. And she activated a particular time for her. And it's been there for weeks. She has not done it. And so she's booked it in for after this play date, dear one, so that she can do it for herself. And it was when she looked at her calendar, it's like, well, no wonder if she did not book that in. She's booked out for the rest of the week. And when would she do it again? And then the whole week would have passed when she is scheduled to do another session for herself on the 24th of March. And this had to occur before. It's the 22nd of March, dear one.
Running out of time.
And it needed to be the 24th of March because it's 6 months from her birthday.
Oh, yes. Yep.
And so she wants to harness the power of the 24th for her, because the 24th September being her birthday, 24th of March is 6 months out from either end of her birthday. So in doing that, how else are you able to focus upon yourselves? You schedule everyone in, and then you go, oh, what's left for me? You're looking for crumbs that are left for yourself. And then you're wondering why you're not happy with the crumbs that you've left for yourselves, dear ones.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I have a right to have a seat at this table. So what am I going to do? How am I going to schedule myself? So whether it is time to rest, whether it is time to go within, meditate, to practice any self-care practices or energy practices, or to even say, my health and my healing and my well-being is as important as anybody else's.
Yeah, and like that's what I teach others, and then I don't practice it myself. Like
Yes.
my most famous saying, everyone, and they always know what's coming. You got to fill up your own cup.
Yes.
you can't overflow into life if you haven't filled up your own cup, and
yes,
we are guilty of doing that. And
you teach what you must learn.
Yeah, so it's a matter of routines, and when you said all of the above, so it is about grounding, it is about rest, it is about booking ourselves in for those moments, and really we don't need to book in big slabs of time. We just probably need to be consistent. Was probably more the
consistency is more important than quantity of time.
Yeah,
because it is in the consistency that forms a habit, but also a pattern. And your body and your brain, your nervous system like consistency and patterns, that predictability. And it creates an accumulation of energy over time. So it builds momentum over time. So you could do 1 hour and you go, oh, that was wonderful. And then not do it for another month because you're like, when am I going to have another whole hour? But if you were to do 5 minutes a day, 5 times 30, that's 600 minutes. Or whatever it is.
And I've been guilty. I've had COVID, and I'm just coming out of it, and I was so lethargic and laying around. But I was thinking, well, why did I get COVID with all the work I do on myself? And then I realized why I got it. It actually gave me space and time to work through some personal stuff I needed to work through and release some of that. So I thank COVID for giving me that space and that time to get to where I am today. But I was like, what can I do for myself? And I thought, right, get back on the beach. So I've just been making an effort to get down to the beach, and like I haven't had the energy, but I get down there. But once I'm on the beach, it's like, boom, the energy's there. So grateful I've done it. I might only be down there 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
but it's just one thing. And I know that by doing that, then it's going to lead me back into my usual practices again and get me back going again. So
let us say that experience of COVID is a sign for you to stop.
Yeah, okay.
To pause, to rest, to heal, to have attention upon your body. Isn't that interesting? It's all the things that we just mentioned.
Yes.
And we adore you, dear ones. But you are very good at ignoring your bodies, and then your body's very good at taking up your intention with something, a crisis that comes up. Now, what if you did not wait for the crisis, the health issue, something dramatic to come up? What if you hear the whispers instead? You will not need these moments. It'll just be part of how you are and who you are, and how you have a loving relationship with your body. If you're treated your body like the way you would love a child, for indeed your body has a consciousness and is aware of how you treat it. So you may talk of love, but then if you're not loving towards your body, then you have not embodied that love.
And it's almost like the word self-care needs to be more thought of as self-love, because it's
self-care. Self-care is self-love in action.
That's a good way of putting it. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And another thing I noticed that through all of this, that next thing, everything ripples out. So when I went down into my dark despair, like I noticed my little dog, he was like miserable. He was getting around with the sad face on too. And then my daughters both, all three of us were here having our COVID experience together.
Yes.
And then trauma started showing up for them in different areas, and it's sort of rippling out. So I now know that by bringing it back to loving myself and taking care of myself, that will then ripple out through my relationships, my family. My little dog's already, you can see him, he's happier. He's he's back getting around again. And so it's amazing that when we do look after ourselves, it's not just ourselves that we are looking after. It's like that, it's rippling out into all those around us as well.
Yes, it is. And that is a very good point, particularly for those of you who have children, because it is very easy to say you must sacrifice your energy to the child. And certainly there are times that you must in the short term. Now, which is why we use that as an example, as why there needs to be a balance in the relationships across lifetimes, because there will never be an equaling of the energy, certainly not in the same way from child to parent. Certainly if the child is then caring for the parent in older age, there may be some balancing there, but it does not always occur in that way. So in that sense, you may then see that the healing that you do for yourself has a ripple effect on your child. If you are concerned about an issue for your child, ask yourself, where does this reflect in my experience? Because if you heal it within you, you will help to heal it in your child.
Wonderful. We're all connected. Everything's connected. And so I was going to probably conclude there with, I did want to bring up the equinox, because it's the weekly message you do with Vicky through Blue Volcano. But I feel like we've really dove in and covered a lot of that weekly message, which was all about the equinox routines. And for me, this equinox is about, we're going into the cooler months on this side of the world. And to me, that's kind of maybe for me, it's a signal of going within. It's more that warmer, getting snugglier, and time to go within and look after ourselves. So just wondering if you want to talk to that at all.
What we will say is, with the equinox, you have a balance of light and dark, night and day. And so you have this balance across northern and southern hemispheres. And yet you're right that, in the southern hemisphere, you will go greater into the darkness, which is that yin energy that goes more into that inward energy and going within until you hit the winter solstice. Whereas in the northern hemisphere, they are going more and more into the light. Right. So more of the expansion outwards. So that is that yang energy until they get to the point where it is the summer solstice. And of course, that hits the same time. Now, notice that while it is not balanced in terms of between light and dark, between like when in your experience, across from northern and southern hemisphere, there is a balance across the two relationships, or the relationships between the two. So across the globe, there is a balance. So one needs to go in so one can go out, and then vice versa as you rotate that around. So there is that balance in and of itself in the equinoxes where you come into equal day and night. Now, what also occurs during the equinoxes and the solstices is there is a balance and harmony within the crystalline grids of Gaia herself. So the crystalline grids harmonize together. So if you think of them as grid lines of energy, and if they are harmonizing together, there's the energy of harmony across the globe within the earth. And because your energy is not separate to the energy of Gaia, you may choose to harness this for yourself. So you can harmonize your energy centers, your lines of energy, the energy channels between energy centers, so that you can come into balance and harmony for yourselves. So when you can do this, it is a wonderful spiritual practice or energy practice to be able to come into balance for yourselves. And these are the times, you can think of them as 4 axes in terms of how the earth spins and revolves around the sun, where you can plant your seeds of intentions. And depending on where you are in the cycle, some will be bearing fruit and coming to fruition. Others will be all about the harvest. Others will be about the planting. So you can see that there's a parallels with nature and how things grow and how things bear fruit. In other words, manifest in the physical, that you can then harness that relationship with Gaia herself. So that is a wonderful understanding of the equinox and the solstice energies. Now, there is more to say on each one. What we will say about this particular one is that it also marks the beginning of a new astrological year. So there is the energy of new beginnings that come with the March equinox. And so this is why we speak of setting intentions for this time, for you're moving into a new cycle for the next 12 months. And yet each 3 monthly point, think of it as a quarterly review.
Yeah. I like that. And I look at doing them monthly on your astrology, but it's nice to have those anchor points as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. They are anchor points, and a wonderful way to see it.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering how we're going, whether there's anything else you'd like to bring forward, because I know that we have other guests coming through today.
You do. So we are happy to withdraw our energy and allow the other guests to come through. We will return towards the end to close off. Beautiful. But for now, we are pleased with this conversation and we welcome more. Okay. All right. This is Vicky speaking. We'll bring Ariavea.
Yep.
Through. Ariavea, for those who don't know, are my Andromedan guides. They are a group of 18 Andromedan guides. Yes. So let's see what they have to say.
Great.
Ooh. Welcome.
And welcome to you.
We are pleased to be here.
We are very pleased to have you here, and it's exciting to have this conversation with you and to share you with the world.
Yes,
as it is. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
How shall we speak of ourselves? Let us say what Vicky said is correct. In how we see ourselves as a collective of energy. And we transmit, you may think of as from the galaxy of Andromeda.
Mm-hmm.
Vicky likes to use the term cosmic light beings. Others may prefer the term galactic guides. We are non-physical beings who work within the light. We connect with the Order of Melchizedek as a group of teachers. And we have chosen to connect with Vicky because of her teachings in relation to integration. For balance is one of our teachings, and integration is all about balance.
And that talks to my heart, because I feel that balance is one of the main things that I'm here to share.
Yes.
My experiences with, particularly, and spirals are another thing that I'm very connected to. And when we look at photos that NASA or those create of the Andromedan actual physical planets, we see it as a spiral type planet. Yes. So I do see that connection of the spiral and balance, and
there is balance in the spiral.
Yeah, most definitely.
Yes, in how the energy is held together.
Yeah. So you mentioned the Order of Melchizedek.
Yes.
So we were wondering about how are you connected to them, or what work are you working on with them? How does it all culminate to support us?
Let us say that the Order of Melchizedek is vast. There are many teachers within that order, and there are many beings within that order. And while the keepers of the keys are connected with that order, we are within that order. Now, what we will say is that each of us are doing different pieces of work, if you wish to say it in those terms. Yeah. So what we will say is each has their role, but the oversight when it comes to the Order of Melchizedek is all about the light. So they are light teachers, if you wish to use that term. And so we connect in that way, and we would say, in your vernacular, in your vocabulary, that we have accepted our mission where we fit in within the vast teachings of the Order of Melchizedek. And given what we are here to do when it comes to balance and the teachings of balance, for it is not only teachings of balance, it is the teachings of sacred union. For when you have integration, as you may know, dear one, but let us say for the others, you have a connection of two different parts. When you have a connection of two different parts, you come into integration. When you come into integration, you come into balance, and then you may have that sacred union. So we'll use the example of feminine and masculine energies. Mm-hmm. So when you have the feminine and masculine energies within you, regardless of the type of bodies that you have, or how you identify. You may think of, and this is the simplest way to understand it, so it is not about gender, it is more about a feminine energy, an inward energy, and a masculine energy, an outward energy. So you may replace your terms if you wished, dear ones, to an inward energy, outward energy. And you can use the Greek terms esoteric, which is inward, exoteric, outward. So you may see that in that way. Now, you have your bodies that have the connection to the feminine, inward, on the left side of the bodies, and the masculine, outward, on the right side of your bodies. You may also understand it as the masculine, outward expression moving forward is the front of the bodies. Feminine, inward expression relating to the past is behind your bodies, right through the back. Now, when you have this double integration, it is like a cross. Do you not come into balance? Is there not integration? Is why the keepers will speak of the balance point. This is the balance point where you have this grand cross within you. And so we are neither feminine nor masculine. We are what you would call androgynous, for we have fully united our energies in sacred union. Now, it is not to say that it is necessary for you, dear ones, in the human experience, but you will see more and more people choosing to move away from traditional, not just definitions of gender and not just roles in regarding to gender, but letting go of gender anything. And so there's a reconstruction here occurring at this time upon the planet around gender. And that is not to say that you cannot enjoy being feminine, you cannot enjoy being masculine, but there must be a balance within your femininity and your balance within your masculinity, knowing that that is not all who you are.
It's like connecting me back to the Asane way as well, that same thing where everybody has their role.
Yes.
And through all of everyone's roles, that does create that balance and that.
Yes, overall.
Yeah. So I can see how we're all connected in that memory as well. But
yes, what we will say on that, notice that there is balance and harmony across the whole, across the group. Now, this is something that the human race has not yet achieved.
Yeah, yeah.
You may see many examples of disharmony across many groups, not just even between nations, which is even occurring at this time upon your planet, but within nations, in groups within them. And even within those groups, and even within family units. So this is occurring on a micro level across the macro of the human race. So when you refer to the Essenes, this is a perfect example of balance and harmony within a group, each having their role, as you stated, each having a perfect contribution to the whole, where each is sovereign in their energy, yet having a collective responsibility. And this is the element that is most missed by many upon your planet, particularly on a spiritual path, which we find interesting, because this is how your social conditioning plays out, even within your spiritual practices. So you have a focus on the individual in Western culture, and in Eastern cultures may have more of a focus on the collective, the group, the family, the unit, the whole. Yet there may be a diminishing of the individual, and the individual does not have their sovereignty, does not have their rights. It is about a sacrifice to the group. So neither is correct. It is about being sovereign. So when you have an integration of two parts, the parts are not sacrificed to the integration. They are allowed to be those parts. You're allowed to be who you are, but also recognizing that you still have a collective responsibility. Now, this is the missing element, certainly within Western spiritual circles, and is something that is still to be worked through upon this planet.
And I feel that comes back to trust, like trusting in yourself. And I think that when you do trust yourself, then you're able to trust, well, if I trust my place in this world, I should therefore trust others, and that we all play that different role for the one purpose of wholeness.
What we'll say, in the example of your scenes, there was certainly a trust within the group, a trust of each other, and a trust in their role and in themselves and who they are, and seeing the big picture of how they contribute to the whole. And so each was valued for what they did and how they contributed and how they were. In other words, each person had their particular gifts, and each could harness their gifts to contribute to the whole. So it was an honoring of their individual gifts that could then contribute to the whole. So it was an honoring of the self, even as they contributed to the group. So as you honor yourself and what you have to contribute, then you can see that how those gifts are here for you to be of service. Now, it is not to subsume the self within the group, but how the self fits within the group and connects with the group.
Yeah, and of course we're going to be talking to Mary Magdalene later on, and I'm sure we'll go into more of
Mother Mary. Yes.
Mother Mary. Yeah, well, still a scenes connection there as well, isn't there?
Yes, there is. There is.
Yeah. So
no mistake.
Yeah. Wonderful. So, do you want to talk more about the work that you're here to do with us at this point in time?
What we will say, as we have already said in connecting with Vicky, it's about balance. Now, we are here as part of Aria, the larger group that is around Vicky, to bring through the teachings about balance and integration. Now, when it comes to the collective teachings around balance through the Order of Melchizedek, this is not our only focus. And we are not limited in only focusing through Vicky. So when it comes to humanity, this is our only focus. When it comes to the cosmos, our focus is large. So what we speak of here is that there is a perfect match of purpose. And so therefore we have chosen to connect with Vicky as agreed, because this was her teaching to be brought through her. Now, it is not to say that she's the only one to speak about balance, but she is unique in the way she brings it together from both psychology and spirituality to teach balance through the medium of integration. And in understanding that, both on a human level as well as a divine one. And so the bringing together, the intersection, integration of spirituality and psychology is hers, and bringing then the understanding of integrating human and divine is hers.
Lovely. Just probably might step into star seeds as a term that we use here. And I'm just going to look, Vicky wrote a question. Many people identify as star seeds or awakening to their star seed heritage.
Yes.
Do star seeds require additional practices?
This is an interesting question, and we will outline why she asked the question, and then we'll lay the basis for this. Now, she can understand that in having her younger son, whose first time upon this planet is certainly of star origins and is from Andromeda. No. Now, she can observe in him that he is very sensitive to energy. And with his needs, he is requiring an awareness of energy. Now, this is supportive of him in many different ways. And so this is particularly her focus on asking about star seeds and the sensitivities to energy. Mm-hmm. Now, what you may also see in some, that there is let us call it a correlation. We don't mean that there is a causation, and we'll explain the difference for those who do not have a science background. Now, that you have a correlation with those with starseed origins who are coming in as autistic. Mm-hmm. And many who are autistic are particularly sensitive to energy. Indeed, some of their symptoms, let us not call them symptoms, some of their presentation is the difficulty in integrating energy within their physical bodies, and then struggle accordingly. Now, we say it's correlation, not causation in that sense. We are not saying that because they are star seeds, they are therefore autistic. It's not them being star seeds that has caused them to be autistic, but they have chosen to come through in that way.
Okay.
So that is a soul choice. And we would like to be clear on this because there are many different discussions about why children come as autistic. Now, while we will not go more into that conversation about autism at this point, but we are presenting it here because of the sensitivity to energy. Now, indeed, you will find people who have starseed energies may be more sensitive to energies than others. In that sense, then you are needing, and let us say it's not those who are star seeds, let us say those who are sensitive to energy, for that is more accurate. So you can be a highly sensitive person, sensitive to energy. So if you're sensitive to energy, therefore you need more diligence and due care when it comes to your energy practices, so that you are releasing other people's energies, that you're not being unduly influenced by other people's energies. And that's why it is really important when you understand the people that you spend most time with, how they can influence your energy. So it is more about being, in that case, more in an energy soup. And so for some of you, more difficult to delineate what is your sovereign energy and how you are moving into an energy soup when it comes to people. Now, we'll use Vicky as the example. She is sensitive to energy. She does not like crowds. She is sensitive to noise and cannot. When we say sensitive to noise, it can overwhelm her.
Yeah.
When it is not noise that she does not like. When it is harmonious to her, then it soothes her. So it's the quality of the noise that is the differentiator of how she responds to noise. Now, that is something that she must be aware of and is indeed aware of, but let us say was not always aware of it. So she cannot differentiate words when people speak in a monotone. She did not know this. So the one subject she failed ever in her life was with a lecturer who had a monotone. She did not understand why she could not, for the life of her, understand a word he was saying. She thought she could not focus enough because it was putting her to sleep. It wasn't indeed putting her to sleep, but it was boring her. Now, she thought it was her boredom that caused the failure.
Yeah.
She has since realized that it was her inability to differentiate words in a monotone that caused that inability to understand the content. When people speak with a great degree of variety in their prosody and the intonation, in the tone of their voice, she's enraptured.
Yeah.
She loves to hear people speak, and she loves to read in a great variety of voice to her children. And so it takes great delight and pleasure in the voice and how that can fluctuate and move and change, and in the tone and the frequency and the speed and the exclamation. Now, that is important. For others, this is why we cannot speak to all. We're saying you must now be aware of how it affects you. So she was an adult. It is only indeed in the last 12 months that she realized,
yeah,
the monotone. Because she would say to people, don't read me something, give it to me to read. I will not understand what you say. She thought people just read badly.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's not that they read badly. It is people are not expressive in their reading very commonly. And so that is her understanding. And she 47, it took her to 47 to figure that out. So for others, what we say to you is, how are you sensitive and what affects you? Now, we'll come back around about starseeds, but we'll say to everyone who is sensitive energy, if you're sensitive to energy, you must be aware of how you are sensitive. In other words, what you are sensitive to, the type of energy you're particularly sensitive to, the environments in which are conducive to your well-being. So for Vicky, she loves her home, her sanctuary. She does not like the crowds, so she will do all that she can to avoid them.
Yes, I know.
And so for others, it is about understanding the same things. In other words, what are the environments that they feel comfortable in, they feel safe in, they feel good in, and what are the environments that are a shock to the system, an overwhelm to the system, or something that they're still going to have to clear. So I'm returning to the starseed question. What we are cautious about, we do not wish to have any sense of separation between those of starseed origins and those not of starseed origins. For indeed, ultimately, all of you come from the stars.
Yeah, I was going to say that. Yeah.
Yet, not all will be awakened to their starseed origins.
Right, yeah.
Not all will be awakened to the sensitivity. Some are soul aspects of souls who have starseed origins, but the soul aspects only have a history on planet Earth. So you may come forth as a soul from the stars, and then given the explosion of population on your planet, choosing to have many different experiences at the same time.
Yeah.
You have the same higher self, but are different soul aspects in different bodies. This is indeed where some may call twin flame or soulmate, perhaps. Yet, we will not go into that teaching, for that is another discussion for another day. Not having the direct memory of the starseed origins, but when you go ultimately to the oversoul, then of course all of you are starseeds. In other words, all of you have origins from the stars. Your souls are eternal. Where were you before the planet Earth was populated? with human beings. It is a blip upon the cosmic history when it comes to time. So in other words, do not see a separation, for indeed you may have soul aspects who are not awakened to their starseed origins. Doesn't mean that they are less than, certainly not. Different, not even. They are part of you.
So there's not so much more practices then to follow. It's probably more just to become more aware of your sensitivities then?
Yes, exactly. Which is why we spent most of our time discussing those sensitivities.
Yeah, so it's more like uncovering, like you were saying, Vicky's only just realised about the monotone, and it's like keep looking for those aha, or going through your day-to-day life and the ahas will turn up.
Yes, it will. Now, what we'll also say, it can be very difficult to understand, because when you know that, you know, your experience is your experience, and for you that is your normal experience. Now, Vicky cannot know that everybody else in that lecture theatre did not experience the lecture as she did. While others would complain also that it was boring, they would not have the difficulty in differentiating the words that she did not have that awareness of. So for her, that awareness came after the fact, when she started to really become attuned to her sensitivities around noise. And let us even say that her sensitivities to noise came even more to her awareness when she had a child who was sensitive to noise.
Double whammy.
So look at the mirroring that you see around you, for it is very difficult to see outside of your experience, because your experience is your experience and is all you know. And so look at the mirroring within your life experience to see, how does this reflect upon me and my experience, and therefore what is it here to show me or teach me?
So I can say I understand that sensitivity to noise as well, but for me it's like situational. It's like sometimes the noise is right, like, and I'll go out and be in the middle of a crowd and won't be affected at all, and other days there's no way I would leave my house. I just know it's not the time to be out in that atmosphere. So,
and that is a good point, that situationally your sensitivity will change according to what you're processing, what if it is a time for you to go within, or whether it is you're happy to be in the outward masculine energies and projecting outwards with other people. So in that sense, you may go, well, today's a day for an inward journey, or now I am processing a lot. And so while I am processing a lot, that takes up a certain amount of energy. And to process sound is another lot of energy that I just do not have for today. So if you can think about your cup, and referring your cup. Now, if you can say there is a certain amount of energy in your cup, and each activity takes a certain amount of energy, then the processing of noise will be a certain amount of energy. For some, it does not take so much energy, because they will easily process and integrate that in through their sensory experience. For others who have sensory processing issues, will take a lot of energy, and even a small interaction will have them depleted for the rest of the day. And that's particularly the case for those who are autistic. Now, for all have sensory processing disorder. Let us say not disorder, issues. Now, for you, that is just knowing about where you are on your given day, attuning to your body, knowing what is conducive to not only your well-being, your contentment, your balance, and your connection. And we're connecting to self.
I'm flashing back to like when I used to watch television, which I don't really watch much anymore, but the ads would come on and they channel them somehow louder, and
yes.
you had a really nice listening level of whatever the show was you may have been watching. Then the ads would come on and be like, just would raise my anxiety straight up, like, why do they do that?
And Vicky would say it's an assault on the senses.
It is. And like I learned to have the remote ready and just hit mute. Ads are coming, mute. So I didn't have to go through that. So so I suppose then I've learned that that's one of my triggers, and to avoid it where I can. Yeah. I just turn the television off.
We did not say that you did.
Okay, so Vicky has got here, how can Andromedan energy support us as human beings here upon Earth?
Let us first say we are peace-loving. We could not dream of being at war with anyone.
Yeah.
And we are all about the energy of love. And so just this and this alone could transform humanity as you know it. So, Vicky's loving our transmission of Andromedan energies to her at this time, where all is in harmony, all is peaceful, all is loving, and all is joyous. Now, in connecting to the Andromedan energies, we'll say everything is beautiful. There's such beauty. For beauty opens your heart. And this is where you, dear ones, can connect with the beauty of your planet and of Gaia to open your hearts to that which is around you. For if you opened your hearts, and we'll come full circle to the question about power that was discussed earlier. If you open your hearts, you will see the beauty in all that is around you. The beauty in Gaia. You would not abuse her. You would not abuse anyone. And you certainly would not abuse yourselves. For you often, dear ones, as we have observed upon this planet, abuse your bodies. In what we may say is a false premise of productivity, even a false economy, by saying that you must continue to do when your body is yearning for rest, to stop, to be still. So you would be more, as we are connected with the planets and the people around you, the animals, and all the energies that all contribute to the energy. Now, we know that you specifically, dear one, are connected to dolphin energy, as are we. And this is one way that you may connect with Andromedan energy.
Nice, yeah.
For there is the energy of joy, there's the energy of wisdom.
And play.
For we are wisdom teachers. Yes, there is wisdom in play, and a wisdom in joy, a wisdom in love, and a wisdom in peace, and a wisdom in connection. Now, when it comes to connecting with the Andromedan energies, you may choose to connect with us. You may choose to connect with Andromedan energies, or you may simply understand that we have found our way to bring through the energies of the divine through our expression. So what we would say to you, dear ones, is what is your expression of the divine here on earth? For you are divine beings. here interfacing in this physical dimension of earth. And you are here to express the divine through you in a way that is individual to you, that is like the multifaceted diamond, the multi-threaded tapestry, the multi-instrument symphony. Each connects to the tapestry, the symphony, the light in their own beautiful individual expressions and variations. And indeed, it is the harmony across the whole, even within the differences, that brings that symphony. So we would say to you, dear ones, do not all look to be the same. Do not look to all have the same teachings. Do not look to compare yourselves with the other. And we know that it's a very human experience. For each will contribute to the whole. What is your note to bring through? What is your expression?
Yeah, and that's quite a personal message for us all. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, a beautiful message. And we are on a planet of duality, and
yes,
and through our I suppose our learned history, we're sort of looking for that joyful experience all the time, and sometimes we're looking for it in the wrong places. And I know I spent many years as the party girl out looking for the next big exciting thing to do and experience and all that. And I find now that I've stepped fully into my spiritual path and investigating myself that I'm finding joy in little wins and little connections, and when we tend to weave our own magic, and how rewarding it is. So
yes, it is.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's not easy. There's highs and lows, but I think the lows is where we learn so much about ourselves that then springs us out into the highs.
Yes.
And of course, bringing in that balance and finding that midpoint.
Yes.
And the more I do this work, and I really don't even like using the word work, but it's just the word that we're using. But this life path, I suppose, choosing these from moment to moment, and still looking for that dolphin joy in everything, but looking at it from a different point of view of connection with all.
Connection with all. And that is, you cannot have joy without the connection with all.
Yeah.
And we want to explain that ultimately, you know that you're a part of the one. And you know that when you go back, we just explained a little bit about a soul aspect being a part of you. You're part of the one. Ultimately, you're all soul aspects of the one. So you're all the one. And so how can you be separated from anybody when you're all part of this source energy? And so what we will say to you, when you understand this connection and you understand your true nature, your divinity, and who you really are, that gives you the ultimate joy. For you cannot be joyful when you see another suffering. And yet you may share your joy. Because the point is not to suffer with them.
Yeah.
But to share your joy with them.
Yeah, and I think that does it. Just when you can find your own joy,
Yes.
And once you've dipped your toes in spiritual joy, like then you know it is a process of trusting and unlearning, you know, your lifetime of experience or recognizing what it gave you.
Yes.
But once we dip that toe in, and then you get to a stage where you're ready to dive in and embrace the all. And then that's where I think I've always had that joyful expression to carry around and try and bring the joker and the joy to everything I do. So it's nice to hear that come back and be connected back to the dolphin energy and all of that. So I thank you so much for that.
You're welcome, Duan. We can say then every day can become a party.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's when you make those connections and then you're like, oh, it's so exciting. You jump around and my daughters just look at me going, you're crazy, Mum. And I say, you'll get there one day. You are my daughters.
They certainly are.
Yeah. So is there anything else you would like to share with us today?
We'll share this final piece. And that is, dear ones, to be at peace with your journey. Many of you, we observe, are wanting you to be further along than where you are. And in being further along, wishing to be further along where you are not in the present moment. You're not in acceptance of where you are. You're resisting where you are. You're fighting where you are. You're condemning and judging where you are.
Yeah.
And therefore not loving where you are. So what we would say to each and every one of you is be at peace with where you are, and you will learn your center and your balance in that moment. And when you do, you can mine for gold in every moment, even when it seems dark and desolate. So while you may not see the gold in those moments, and you may merely can only pray for it to pass soon, and pray for assistance so that we as in we the divine may support you. Then we can say more will unfold for you in the subsequent present moment of each unfolding, when you have enough space to return to the understanding of what was there for you. Now, we do not make light of suffering here upon your planet, for there is still much. We know that you are moving into a time where there'll be less suffering and will be less suffering, but you're not there yet, dear ones, as your world events so clearly demonstrate. Yet what we will also say is that in the death throes of the old energy, just like the hurt animal is most dangerous. Yet what we will say is the old energy is dying for the new is being birthed. And then you are here to birth the new. So in accepting where you are, be patient in the birthing process. Certainly, as mothers, you understand that there is a gestation period. And even so, there is a time when you need an additional expenditure of energy to caretake the growth of that child. So if you can see yourselves as part of that same process, you are gestating so that you can birth anew into this new energy, and that yet still you need a lot of energy to caretake yourselves into this new consciousness of love. Then you can be present with each part of the journey, just as you would be present with the infant, knowing that one day the infant will be an adult, yet appreciating the curl of their fingers over yours, or their smile, their softness, the touch of their skin, wondering what they will be like. You can appreciate them in the wonder of how they are.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
And so you may be with yourselves, dear ones. Whether you are gestating or a newborn infant or an adolescent upon your journey, whatever stage you are upon, appreciate the wonders that each part may bring you.
And thank you. That's just clicked so many of my life questions all into a simplistic point for myself. So thank you.
You're most welcome,
Thank
dear
you.
one.
Yeah.
We are pleased with our conversation. We are happy to have connected again and to build further this understanding and relationship of who we are and of our energy. We will say to each and every one of you, from our hearts to yours, we send you peace, love, joy, and balance.
Thank you. We kindly accept it and send it straight back to you in balance. So thank you.
Vicky back again.
Wow.
That was an interesting conversation.
It was. And it's just like, yeah, it's just like all this weight that I'm carrying at the moment. And I was saying to the girls the other night, I've got this big belly, and I said, I feel like I'm going to give birth. And I know it's not far away, that the new idea that I'm at my new way of being and living in this world is about to be born. So
yeah,
it's sort of like that last conversation with Ariavea Ariavea that how it's all connected, and just ding, ding, ding. So that was lovely. Thank you for sharing your guides with us.
You're welcome. Well, thank you for sharing last time with your guides.
Yeah, true.
Okay. So Mother Mary was the next person.
I thought it was Mary Magdalene, but Mother Mary, beautiful.
Yes, Mother Mary. Yes, so I've not channeled her publicly before. So connect with her energy.
Welcome.
I'm pleased to be here. Most pleased.
Let's take a moment.
Yes. All the moments you need.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you here, and like Vicky was just saying, it's the first time that she's gone public with you visiting us, so that's pretty exciting. Another great thing for a 22-day.
Yes.
So welcome, and you don't really need any introduction.
No.
Mother Mary, you're very well known throughout this planet, but in saying that, I'm wondering how misunderstood you are, and would you like to talk about clarity around who you are now to us, and who you were? Was your last incarnation 2,000 years ago. Anything, anywhere you'd like to start? Because sorry, I'm overwhelmed. I have a million questions.
That is okay. I am happy to speak to these points. What I will say is that I do not wish to shatter people's conceptions of me, for that would not be a kindness. What I will say is, in sharing more of me, in understanding more of me, let this be a gentle expansion rather than a shattering of old conceptions.
Yep.
While that only a certain, let me say, if you could present an object to a person, let us say it is this crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you were to describe somebody about this crystal, on this surface, you would understand that it's black.
Yeah.
Now, you know what we are going to, what Vicky's going to do. When you shine the light through.
That's it there. Yeah.
You see it as gold.
Yeah.
So your experience of that now changes. So I wanted to show you that because, and now it is returned to the black, it is not untrue that this is black, just as it's not untrue that it was gold when the light was shining through. So some may have presented me as the black crystal, not having experienced me as the light shining through. Now that is an analogy, but I wish to lay that basis in speaking in our conversation of what the perceptions of me are. And I want to share a little bit about Vicky's experience of me.
Mm-hmm.
Just so that we can together gently expand people's perceptions of me rather than shatter their conceptions.
That would be lovely, yeah.
Yes. So Vicky has learnt of me through the Greek Orthodox Church, just as many people learn about me through Christian churches around the world. Now, there are many stories about me within that context. Now, it is not to say that they're untrue, or let us say it is not that there isn't truth within them, but is as not the whole truth.
Yeah. Just
like this being a black crystal is not the whole truth. So in her experience of me, she felt safe with me as an entity, as a personage, an ascended master, if you will. And I was able to connect with me as an energy because of the mother energy that I hold.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the mother energy, she was able to connect with me. She wasn't able to connect with my son, as was taught through the Greek Orthodox Church.
Yeah.
That was a personal thing, and I will not go into that here. But I will say that this was her only connection into the Greek Orthodox Church, and that is one thing that she has taken from her upbringing to have connected with me. Now, when she began to open up spiritually and energetically, when she first studied with Doreen Virtue and was learning all about angels and more of a broader understanding of spirit, in opening her intuitive senses, the first, now let me back up, she sees energy in its pure form and not as form.
Okay, yeah.
So while you may see an angel as a person with wings, she sees them as energy. So she not saw me, was her first opening to seeing any aspect of the divine was to me. And I revealed myself to her as a blue energy, and she was able to connect with that energy, and it was a blue nebulous orb that moved with her, for she used to connect with me, particularly in praying over her elder son at the time, even when he was a young child. And so in laying him to sleep, she saw me hovering above him. So in that connection, she was then able to form a personal connection with me. In forming a personal connection with me, she was able to form a personal understanding of me. And so that's what I would say to anyone who wishes to connect with me. There is that which you have read or been told, and that which you may form a personal connection with. For truly, I am here to connect with as many people as possible to support humanity in its unfolding into the consciousness of love.
Love, yeah.
And this term is a wonderful one in understanding more clearly where you're heading towards as a planet. This was the work that we as Essenes did. And that was a culmination in Yeshua's teachings and in his ministry. It was all to anchor love onto this planet so that you can now reap the benefits 2,000 years later. It is not to say that you have not reaped benefits as a human race in the interim, but this is now the full arc of that energy and what took place in the collective teachings and ministry at that time. So yes, well, we were Essenes, yes.
Most definitely. And I've been working or reading Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice, the Essenes Children of Light.
Yes.
And it's like new information to me because I was brought up Roman Catholic. So
yes.
it's been wonderful information, and it just settles within me like, oh my gosh, these are my people.
Yes.
Like
yes.
I just see so many correlations with the way I think and I act, and then to take away the falsehood of the doctrination that was created around who these scenes were supposed to be, to then look at this material, and I could never understand the other. Like it just didn't make sense to me. And
yes.
I actually ran from the church when I was younger because I just thought, what beautiful God would have me hurting my knees to pray, and I had all these
yes.
silly childhood thoughts, but it was bigger thinking brought
yes.
down to a child's point of view. So to read about these scenes and then to actually see you as a member of the Essenes along with all the others that played an important part in anchoring the love consciousness on this planet is just it's so refreshing, and just gives me more energy to keep doing what I'm doing more and more. So thank you for that.
I will say that the books you're referring to, Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice, if people wish to learn more about the Essenes, they certainly may do so in those books, for there are many aspects of the life shared in those books. What I will say here is what you have described and what I have outlined already in Vicky's discovery of me is what I would also encourage to all you dear ones in having a personal understanding. There are teachings that are the exoteric outward teachings. Now, what the divine feminine energy is that you must come back into is not just the divine feminine as the divine mother or the feminine aspects of the divine, but that feminine inward energy, the esoteric teachings. So that is what Mary Magdalene was here to be part of, that branch with Yeshua, now bringing through the esoteric teachings. Now, all that was about having your own personal experience of the divine, your own personal understandings, your own personal relationship. It is about not having another mediator through which you must go to have an experience of the divine. In other words, you do not need to go to the priest to have that experience. You may have your own inner experience. That is what gnosis is. Having an inner experience of the divine so that you can come to your own understanding. Now, it is not to say that you cannot benefit from outward teachings, but when you experience or interface with outward teachings, you can then go within and see what is your inner experience of those teachings. Do they resonate with you? Are they your truth? How do they feel to you? Can you receive confirmation through inner guidance of them in terms of how they are applied? How can they be applied, if at all? And to what degree and in what aspect? And so this is what I would say to all of you, dear ones, my dear children, in coming to any understanding or experience of me or of any teaching or of any being, come to your own inner experience. For when you come to that understanding, you will then know that your power is within. And speaking of power today, your power is within, and you need not give your power away to another. You may certainly co-create with another in developing an understanding with another or receiving healing from another, but not give your power away by, let me say, disconnecting from what is true for you.
I just reading those teachings, like, oh, I so had a life in that community for sure.
Yes.
Like,
yes,
it was just felt like learning about home.
Yes.
And especially the aspect that so many other teachings were taken in, and they went through their same process of looking at all the different ways of the world and then looking at it and see what felt true for them as well, and then pulling together all the different pieces of what they learnt to then improve their own experience in
Yes.
those times as well. So yeah, it's just like being home, and it's in a form of empowerment to keep moving forward, that I am on the right path, and so that it's just nice to have that bit of confirmation that, you know, a bit of your own spiritual heritage, I would say.
Yes. Yes.
So as an extension to that, like, we all have our beautiful gifts. Every single one of us on this planet has all our amazing gifts. In particular, I know that in the time of the Essenes, we did practice a lot of working towards, each day we put aside time to work on our own spirituality and our own practices. So I imagine by taking that time every day, our gifts would have expanded. So is that something we can trust in our own lives now, that we keep putting time towards our own routines and our own practices, that those gifts will expand?
Certainly. Now, let me say it is very different from 2000 years ago. And to answer your question, your previous question, no, I have not incarnated since then. I have chosen to ascend so that I may help and be of benefit to humanity as a whole. Now, in that community is a very different structuring of community and of work. And you have many people upon your planet enslaved to their work, whether they're earning lots of money or only too little money, there is an enslavement to work. Now, this was an energy that was upon the planet millennia ago, the energy of slavery. And indeed, you see that in groups of people across your planet still needing to heal from the intergenerational trauma that caused, and are still carrying that energy and needing to release and heal that energy. So, but we would say that across cultures and across what you would call races, we only see human beings, but what we would call races, you would call races, that you have the energy of slavery that's still to be released from your consciousness. And so whether it's slavery to your mortgages, slavery to your rent and your bills, slavery to your work, it is not equally easy for all, let me acknowledge at this point, to carve the amount of time that we were able to dedicate to our spiritual practices. We were a community in balance and harmony that dedicated a certain amount of time to work and then a certain amount of time to contemplation and our spiritual practices. And our community was structured as such. So I do not wish anyone to feel that there is any blaming, an individual blaming on them, that they are not spending hours a day in spiritual contemplation. And indeed, for most people, that is not possible. What we, as we the divine, would say is, and what was already discussed, the consistency, even small amounts per day, is helping you to integrate that into your day. Now, here you are at this time upon the planet's history, is most of you, most people will need to integrate their spiritual practices with the day-to-day responsibilities that you all may have. Now, in the sharing of responsibilities that we had in the Essene community, this eased the burden that many of you still have on caregiving and raising of children, in the making of food and household activities, the production of food, the production of clothes and caretaking of animals, and all that supported our community. So while that was structured in such a way, you do not have such structures in your communities and your societies yet. Yet. For here you are, many of you, only one or two adults raising children, and sometimes it is only the one, even when there is the couple. One being responsible for the caretaking of the child, and as you know, how much energy that takes and how little time there is for spiritual study and contemplation. Now, that changes, of course, over time, but in having a different structuring of your communities, then you would have greater support. And in having greater support, then there'll be times for some of you to rest, some of you to work, some of you to go into spiritual contemplation if you were to share those burdens. So I want to ease the guilt that people have in not being more spiritual in not having the time that they would like to have for spiritual study and contemplation. And Vicky certainly knows that it is almost a measure of privilege to be able to do so. Now, it is not to say that you cannot engage in an activity and be mindful in your activity and be contemplative in your activity. And indeed, that is what I would recommend. When you're busy, you can still be present, you can still be grounded, you can still be mindful, you can still be contemplative. So understand it can be the way that you go about your day. Now, in having dedicated time to your spiritual and energy practices, then of course that is of benefit also. And I am not certainly arguing against this, and would certainly encourage wherever and whenever possible. What I wish to say, for many do pray to me. I hear every prayer and connect with everyone, regardless of religious or cultural or racial background. I'm not here for one nor the other, but I'm here for all. And certainly that can continue to be part of your spiritual contemplation and practice. What I would encourage to be the extension of prayer is to allow me to hear me, to connect with what I may say in turn. Now, when I describe that experience that Vicky had of me, her oldest son is almost 20. That experience, he was still in a cot, a crib. It has taken her this long to feel worthy enough to channel me. And that is what will stop most people to developing a relationship with me. You must feel worthy, dear ones, to allow me into your lives, to receive me, to fill me with you. Vicky's now recalling an experience that she had driving in the car and filling me with her. These have been years in the making, these experiences. And here she is, still wondering, how is it that she can be one who's channeling me? And part of what I'm doing is easing her, soothing her, while I speak through her body. And so there's emotions within her that is stirring. But what I will say in sharing this particular experience is so that you may, each of you, understand that it can be a journey to come to a point of feeling worthy enough to be worthy of my attention. And yet I want to say that there is no question of your worthiness, dear ones. I am here for all. And so I want to impress that upon you. There is no one here who is not worthy. And there is no one here I would not help, and I would not heed their call. For I heed all your calls. And I'm with each and every one of you, for you are all my children.
Beautiful. Thank you, because we are all one, and I think
Yes.
that's the biggest teaching we need to take on board, and that it takes us all to be one.
Yes, yes, indeed.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Just wonderful to be able to talk to you and get over this first meeting so that we can actually accept ourselves as all worthy. And yeah, that was a wonderful way to sum up the whole visitation with you today.
Yes, I look forward to more.
As do we.
From my heart to yours.
And for our heart back to you. Thank you.
There's a lot of emotion in that. But I'm just seeing the time, and I know you need to go.
Yeah. We need to bring the keepers back. So
yes.
When you're ready, but yeah. I'll be replaying this again later.
Yes, me too. I'll bring them back through and we can wrap up so you can go to your meeting.
Lovely, thank you.
What a wonderful conversation, dear ones, that you have had. We are pleased that you have journeyed through these conversations, and know that, again, there's so much more to unfold, so much more to discuss, and so much more to connect with also, dear ones. So let us wrap up this session, contain the energy, share with all, bless each and every one of you listening to this, and let us say, from our hearts to yours, much love.
And for our hearts to yours, so much love, so much weaving. Thank you.
You're welcome, dear ones. Wow. Okay. I shall let you go, my love.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you for putting the questions together, and because otherwise there wouldn't be this sharing.
It's amazing how they come to me, and they're always in their perfection. Exactly. It's like we are connected, and
yes,
it's like I'm dipping my toe into the energy of the next meeting. So
yes, and that's what I would say. Like, Mother Mary, it is like dipping a toe into her energy. There's no way that I could fully embody her energy. It would be too much.
Yeah.
And that's what I'd say to anyone watching. It's like it's holding a certain amount of energy in the body and letting the consciousness to speak through. There is no way I would be able to hold all that energy. The keepers are more integrated with me.
Yeah.
But it's still emerging, I'm still there. I'm still having the experience of them speaking and with all of them. But if I was to choose to step back further in my consciousness and allow them to take over, and I've done that once, and it took me the rest of the day to recover. Going back to the point of zapped me out. It zapped me out because the energy was so strong. So if people can understand, it's like connecting to a certain amount of wattage or voltage of energy, and being able to connect to that consciousness enough to bring through their words.
It's almost back to like that window of tolerance too, like an expansion and widening of that window for you every time you do this with the different energies.
Yes. Yeah. Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll send you my love, and my love to everyone listening and watching in the eternal moment of now. And thank you for watching along with us, and thank you for bringing through the questions.
Oh, and thank you for allowing us to experience this without you. We wouldn't be able to do this. So it's just a wonderful, a scene-like way of bringing this to everyone. We all play our part.
Perfect. We do. We certainly do.
Yeah. All right.
What a wonderful way to end.
Yeah. Much love.
Much love.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.